Recording. All right, good morning everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is James Addington, and this is my presentation for my Fire Instructor 1 for the state certification. Today's topic will be hose operations and hose streams. Real quick, emergency exits are left corner, right corner, and then over here on the far other left side. Just need to get out. There are bathrooms through that back door right there on the right. There's additional bathrooms through the door on the south side immediately out. And if you need additional restrooms, you go through these doors, take a left down the hallway, and take a right. There are additional bathrooms there. There are snacks there at the back for anyone who might be hungry during the presentation. And if you need to use the bathroom or anything, feel free to go at any time. All right, so today we'll be doing, some of our objectives, we'll be going over different hose loads, hose deployments, fog nozzles, and objects like that. After we do the PowerPoint presentation, we will go out to, I'll give you guys about a 10-minute break to use the bathroom, get ready, get a drink or anything that you may need. And then we'll go out to the bay where we'll do our hands-on skills. And then once we do our hands-on skills, we'll come back in. I have a 10-question multiple choice test to hand out to everyone. I'll grade those, go over the test with you guys, and then we'll call it a day. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and start the presentation. So starting off with the kind of a way to help move hose, which is commonly used in the hose strap, is when you take webbing and you can tie it up around the hose, loop it over your shoulder to help you drag. It kind of allows you to use your body to pull, so you're not relying so much on grip strength. Personally, I've found them in the past to be kind of more troublesome than what they're worth. I've had them snag on things. But if you ever need additional help pulling, if you're doing a single, like solo firefighter hose advancement, the hose strap is a great way to help give you some leverage when dragging a hose. So review question, what are the type of tools? Well, we just talked about the fire hose strap. So we're going to start going over some different ways that we lay in supply for a structure fire. So this is probably the most logical, in my opinion, and kind of the most sound way to do that would be the forward lay. So the forward lay is when you hook up at your water source and then lay your hose to the fire, and then the truck's on scene. As you can see here in this picture, I've looked over our district maps pretty extensively, and every location that has hydrants, this would be the most sound way to go about it, because like in Oak Grove, we have a full grid system. So every street, there's at least one hydrant on every end of the street in every neighborhood. And even on Bates City, every street that has a dead end, the way you advance into the street has a fire hydrant. So here are some of the advantages. The pumper remains on scene. So the engineer would be able to see anything that's going on. You'd be able to have immediate access to everything on the truck, equipment, and so on and so forth. And then be also be able to, let's see, yeah, pretty much already hit those comments. So you're able to see what's going on. You have access to every equipment. And so when it comes to, you have to obviously leave someone at the hydrant to hook up with this, however. So remember the hand signs. Once the person hooks up to the hydrant, when the engineer gives you the circle finger roundabout, that means you're ready to flow water. If you're not within visual, like you can't see the individual, either the person at the hydrant or the engineer, that's where radio communications will come into play. And then there's the reverse lay, which is when you pull, you pretty much get out, deploy your attack line, and then take your truck from the fire scene to your water source. Few problems with that though is it takes a little bit of time to get to where you'll have to take all your equipment you're going to need off the truck first, because once the truck's gone, it's down the road, you don't have access to it, so you have to unload all your equipment on scene first. Also, the engineer would not be able to see what's happening on scene. And yeah, those will be the two main objectives. And that's why I think the forward lay is better, because then at least you have access to everything. You're able to attack quicker, and the engineer will be able to react and see things happening on fire ground. And here's kind of the reverse with two supply. Otherwise, we're taking a gated Y, attaching two different attack lines and flowing it that way. I know here at SNI we do a lot with our second incoming unit. Our first unit will get on scene. Our second unit coming in will attach a hydrant and then move in and then connect to the first truck. We also frequently relay pump also. So what would be the difference between forward and reverse lay? You want to chime in?
Equipment. At the scene versus away from the scene.
Very good. Any other advantages or disadvantages?
Starting at the water supply and moving in is the forward lay, and the reverse lay is leaving and going to the hydrant for your water supply, leaving the fire scene and going to the water supply.
Right. Very good. And then I do have another next question for you guys. Is where would be a scenario that you'd want to use a forward lay versus a scenario where you'd want to use a reverse lay?
A hazardous incident where you wouldn't want your truck or people exposed. You're operating remote monitors and whatnot.
That'd be a good one for a reverse lay. Another situation might be where we maybe mutual aid's in somewhere, and like say the house at the corner is the one on fire, but the hydrant is located all the way down at the end of the street, like in a cul-de-sac. Could be another potential. Like I said, I studied our maps pretty extensively for all the neighborhoods, and there's not a single street that we would be able to forward lay into. No matter which way you come from, there's hydrants on both ends of every street. Every cul-de-sac has a hydrant going into the cul-de-sac, so. Very good. And then deploying pre-connect hose lines. This would be the Minuteman hose line. I know here at SNI Valley we use pretty much exclusively the AAA, but during our skills portion of the day, we'll be going over the flat load and the AAA. And then there's some other style deployments, which is known as flat load, accordion load, horseshoe load, but today's focus will be the flat load and AAA. All right, well, what are two methods that can be used to deploy pre-connect hose lines? We use one. Yep. Very good. Pretty good, yeah. Horseshoe, accordion, there's a lot of them. Departments all over the country, you have different preferences, but I know at least here in the Kansas City region, I've been with 3 different departments, and all 3 use the AAA. Now our main LDH supply line is a flat load, so we technically use both of those. But yeah, pretty much. Which type of hose loads are commonly used in your jurisdiction? What methods can be used to deploy these types of hose loads? No, what do you think?
AAA is what's used in our jurisdiction.
Look, I think that the key to remembering on the AAA is it has to be loaded cleanly, and it also has to be deployed completely before you try and chart it.
Which we'll be going over that later on in the presentation. Describing, so learning objectives for this portion would be the way to advance a hose line. And so, so today we'll kind of operate in the bay due to the pretty extreme cold outside. We don't want to turn the front pad into a skating rink. So pretty much the big focus on the PowerPoint we'd like to focus on would be like stairways and such, where there's obstacles and hazards that come in the way. Because I mean, if you're deploying a hose line over open ground, you're not going to really have much issues. But some things to note is uncharged lines are easier to advance. However, if the only time you ever want to use an uncharged line is if there's no current or very minimum presence of fire or any danger, because you don't want to go into an area where danger, and then, oh wait, we don't have water supply, and then you have to bleed line, you just shoot a bunch of air into the area and maybe provide additional fuel for the fire. So the working line drag, pretty much, you take your pre-connect, and so when it's charged with water, you'll have it on one side, carry it over, make sure your nozzle, you have some length of nozzle in front of you. Personally, I always try to hold just back past the nozzle, even if there's like a pistol grip, I usually hold back. And the reason why is a lot of times, especially when flowing water at a high PSI, people will grab the pistol grip and then they'll start like chicken winging it, and then you don't have a lot of control. Whereas if you maintain, kind of hold back and kind of ignore the pistol grip a little bit, people often usually start getting a way more flexibility and range of motion with it. So some safety guidelines is whenever you deploy your hose line, you want to make sure you're checking for any kinks or twists or anything, bends, anything that could restrict the water flow. You want to make sure you slowly open, bleed out the air in the system, so that way you're not introducing that air into the fire. And when you do it slowly to help prevent water hammer. And then you'll want to select your different desired pattern, which that's more on the lines when you're using a bog nozzle. Obviously with a smooth bore, you only got the one stream, straight stream. And then you want to make sure when you're doing it with a team of 1 or 2 or more people, you're on the same side of the hose line. Whenever you approach doors, you want to make sure you check with a thermal imaging, or you can use the back of your hand to detect for heat. Stay low, try to stay below the smoke level if possible. Try to avoid blocking doorways or windows. And then if you have any like doors that automatically close, try to chalk those so they don't close behind you, which can pinch, damage the hose, and it can also block your escape if something happens, and can also lead to confusion. As like you kind of go behind, it's like, well, there should have been an opening here, and there's no opening now. There's been a handful of NEOSH reports about that. And then, yeah, I think that's all the major bullet points there. Advancing hose up stairway, try to keep it clear as possible. Whenever you're going up, try to have the hose on the outside of the stairway, not the inside. It gives you a bit of a better bend in the hose, so it doesn't kink around like poles or the handrail. And then, if possible, when manpower allows, try to position a firefighter at every like stairwell level to kind of help feed the hose up. And I understand, depending on where we're at, may not always be most ideal, but if possible, just try to feed hose up. And then I'm gonna go quickly, just kind of draw a demonstration over on the whiteboard of what I'm talking about. So like say we're at like 1401, we got 3 stories. If possible, like here's our entryway from the outside, we could advance up, position, like say it's on the 2nd floor, which would be about here. We just position firefighter here, here, and here, and then we'll just feed up through back and forth. Now, I know even if we're at full staff, assuming no one took vacation time, sick time, personal time, or whatnot, we're only at 9 people, so it may not be the most ideal. What you could also do is have one person here, feed up, and then once the hose is fully deployed, have this person waiting right here, and then have those 2 regroup up, and then not make entry onto the fire level until everyone's regrouped. You want to feed your excessive hose up to the stairs to the level above you, so that way as you advance onto the floor, gravity will kind of help pull the hose down to you rather than trying to pull up. Does that make sense? All right, cool. And go ahead and erase that real quick. And everyone can hear me fine and everything? All right, cool. So advancing down the stairwell, pretty much the same concept as going up, except this time you're not having to fight gravity as much when you're pulling the hose line. I'm a firm believer, if there's potential fire, just use a charged hand line. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't want to get caught unprepared. So even though it is easier to deploy a hand line that isn't charged, I would advise, if you're ever making interior, you should have a charged hand line. And then pretty much exactly what I was just talking about. The warning here is this is a dangerous job, there's potential for danger, so always have everything at your disposal to take care of yourself and the people around you. So kind of rehashing on the way to the advanced hose. So like I said, when you're going up, it's going down same time. Make sure the hose stays on the outside to avoid sharp pins and kinks on like railings and such. And then try to have enough, make sure you have enough hose to reach it. This is where sometimes like a high-rise pack will come into play, where like say it's on the second or third floor and you deploy 200 feet and it only gets you to the entry level. That's when you can start applying you have to probably shut down the hand line real quick, attach your high-rise pack and then extend and go on from there. But then also try to have firefighters at each pivotal point on the stairs to kind of help feed. It is a lot easier to go down than it is to go up, because like I said, you don't have to worry about the weight pulling up the weight, you just push it down. And also when it kind of later in the presentation, when you start talking about friction loss, it helps a lot because water travels down a lot easier than it travels upward. A couple places in our district that I can think of that where we might encounter this would be like the Holiday Inn and 1401 are the two places that come to mind first and foremost. The majority of we have a few apartment complexes and such that are 2 stories. And I know there's like the Cognac Lodge and such, it's only 2 floors, so you might have at least 1 stairwell if it's on the 2nd floor. But 1401, the Holiday Inn, and those new apartments over there off of Salem and 4th Street would be the only few places I can think of where stairwell deployments for like excessive amount would really come into play. And then standpipe operations, I am confident that I know the Holiday Inn has a standpipe on the outside, so we can just take the high-rise pack, go to whatever floor that the fire's on, and hook up to the standpipe there. I believe 1401 has, or at least is the sprinkler attachment, and I have to double check for, but the new apartments, they have connections, I believe, right? Correct? Yeah. So 1401 does not. So actually on the next slide, or here in a couple slides, we'll talk about an improvised standpipe. That will probably be where 1401 will come into play. For standpipe operations, be alert for pressure relief devices. You can use a gated Y if you need to attach multiple attack lines on the same attack floor. And while connection is made, extra hose should be deployed up the stairs just in case. So here's the improvising standpoint, or standpipe, sorry. So here would be an inside standpipe connection where you have the pipe that goes up to whatever floor and you just connect your high-rise pack to whichever one. Where over here you're improvised, you pretty much have a hose load that comes out and just goes on down the outside of the building to the engine or your apparatus that's flowing water. Whenever you do an improvised standpipe, you will need to secure your hose so it doesn't just start, whenever it charged, starts falling down, 30, 40 feet or what have you. So you will need to tie it off to something that's secured, such as a support beam, railing, or one of those type of solid reinforced points. It also shows where here, let's say this one's a 6-story building. They have a support tied off on the 3rd floor also. And like I said, the one place I can think of where we will actually need it would be 1401, the assisted senior living, because they don't have the standpipe in the building. It's a 3-story building. So that might be a consideration we can have wherever the fire floor is. If it's 2nd or 3rd floor, we could introduce an improvised standpipe, okay? Any questions over anything like that so far? Mm-hmm. Am I explaining it nice and clearly?
Yeah.
Cool. When firefighters must improvise a standpipe system, there will be a delay applying water, as you'll have to pretty much get the hose up, down, and then attach to the truck. So it'd be something to consider when planning for your strategy. So what are the differences between advancing an uncharged and charged hose line? Yeah, you want to take a shot at that?
It's a lot harder if it's charged.
It is a lot harder.
Hazards,
Hazards.
uncharged is much more hazardous than charged.
It is. Another thing is when you're deploying an uncharged hand line, there's chances that it can get bend up, caught, or like slide underneath. You know how some railings have like this much space. You might go up underneath it, and then when you charge the hand line, it expands, and now it's stuck there. And then you'll have to uncharge it to get it unstuck. Another consideration to come in. So that's another reason why I always want to advocate to go, if you're going interior, you have a charged hand line. Learning objective number 4 is we're going to talk about the different types of nozzles and their spray patterns, which there's only really 2 types. You have your smooth bore and your fog nozzle, but we'll be kind of getting more discussion there. And then we have the factors that come into play when choosing your pattern, such as your pressure rate, your flow rate, gravity, wind direction, and how strong it is, air friction, then what nozzle design. Like for example, you have something like a trash fire or a hay bale fire, you might want like a smooth bore straight stream for penetration power. Whereas if you might have more of an interior fire where you can use a fog nozzle to cool a room, use it for ventilation, or if you have more like a hazardous material where you have something burning, you can use a spray pattern as a shield. Or some type of situations where you might choose one or the other. Do you need range, or are you going to be on top of it? If it's something like that's far away, you'll want a smooth bore to be able to get distance. Hose stream uses, pretty much to apply water and foam from point A to point B. It's kind of like like a pipeline from the truck to the nozzle. The purpose of pretty much dispensing water, it reduces heat, disperses hot gases. You can use water to perform or create a shield, like I was mentioning, for kind of like when we do our levies in the fire academy, where you have to approach a flaming propane tank and use a fire shield. The wide string to create a shield, go up, turn it off. Never had to do that in real life, but I mean, kind of cool. Then also performing hydraulic ventilation is pretty much you take a fog nozzle, go up to a window, and then adjust the pattern just within the width of the frame, and it will just pull smoke, or it'll pull air through, pulling smoke out of the room. Different types, describing hose streams, patterns they form, nozzles that create the patterns, the type of valves that control them, and factors that limit a hose stream. Stream quantity and reach. So this is where friction loss will come into play. This is where how much pressure you're applying to the hose will come into play. So there's plus the size. The bigger the nozzle or bigger your opening, the less friction loss you're going to have. Or which will also, depending on flow, you can also detect like your reach or how strong it is. Size of the nozzle opening and what type of stream it is. Hose stream shape. Smooth bore equals a solid stream. It's a one size fits all. You only have the one type of stream when it comes to a smooth bore. You do have a greater reach with it, or I guess we'll talk about fog nozzles real quick. Fog nozzles are adjustable. You can go into what's called a straight stream. It's not like true straight stream or fog stream, kind of where you're going in or going out. It's extremely adjustable, very common across fire departments all over the area. Extinguishing properties of water, it's readily available, easy to get. It's most jurisdictions, you have mini hydrant systems, In the more rural area, we can either draft, we have tanker operations. Water absorbs large amounts of heat. It's relatively inexpensive. It's commonly available, and it has greater heat absorbing capacity than the most common extinguishing agents. Water converted to steam. So pretty much, there's the formula. I don't know if you guys want to go into the math of it, but pretty much when you apply water, so like a drop of water will expand up to 1,700 times its area when it's converted into steam. Why is water an effective extinguishing agent? Anyone want to chime in?
It cools down fire.
Cools down the fire.
It's readily available.
Readily available. I like it. Pretty much what they said.
Can be applied multiple ways.
Yeah, we can use it any way we like.
Yeah.
Very easy to adjust them on the fly.
And another perk of water is there's no environment like hazards like you might get with extinguisher foams or some types of extinguishers that have chemicals in them. So.
Except for ice.
Except for ice like today where it's 1 degrees outside.
It is.
And then note NFPA's 1963 standard of fire hose connections identifies 2 general categories of hose stream nozzles: straight tip nozzles and spray nozzles. For this manual, straight tip nozzles will be referred to as smoothbore, and the spray nozzles will be referred to as fog nozzles. So, hose stream nozzles control water flow. Smoothbore, fog, and broken stream nozzles will determine the shape of the stream and be able to in its reach. So here we got some smoothbore nozzles. You'll notice they all kind of funnel down into a tip. We have our AAAs are equipped with smoothbore nozzles currently at this time. They operate at a lower PSI than a fog nozzle, so you don't need as much force to get the same effect. They, like on the fog nozzles, the little bits where it kind of turns in, where it rotates, can get easily clogged with debris if you're dragging along the ground. Smoothbore, you don't typically have that issue unless you just like plunge it in the mud or dirt or something. And then it can be used to apply compressed air foam. And it has, now there is the caution that since it does operate at a lower pressure, it does give the hose a possibility where if you go around a corner or something, it can bend and pinch off and kink, and you may lose your water supply. Where the fog nozzle operates at a higher PSI, the hose is firmer. You don't really have that much chance. And another con of the straight smoothbore is you have the one type of stream, and that's it. You got the straight stream, that's it. There's no adjusting it to apply change for the situation. And then here is a visual graph of straight stream to narrow angle to wide angle fog. Pretty much, the wider you go, the wider the curtain you get. Fog nozzles, I do like them. It gives you a lot of flexibility. You can use it for multiple scenarios. This is where you start using for ventilation. This is where you can make it for a shield, and so on and so forth. But it also it's also easier to deploy at times because you can widen it out, and whenever you widen out the fog nozzle, the friction lock, the pressure of it decreases and becomes a little bit easier to manage, especially when you're starting to get tired a little bit. Also, like in the previous slide where I talked about where the smoothbore, since it operates at a lower PSI, has the possibility for kinking when it goes around and bend. You don't have as great a chance of that with the fog nozzle because it operates at a higher PSI and the hose that it's attached to is usually firmer. So, and yeah. And then caution, abrupt changes in the reaction force of the hose line may throw firefighters off balance. So that's pretty much like a scenario for that might be like you operate multiple hand lines and 2 people turn off their hand lines at once, and the third guy suddenly has all that force on him, might knock him down. It's kind of how I imagine that one. Automatic fog nozzles, flow rates, high flow, mid-range, and low flow. I don't think I've ever seen an automated nozzle. So here's the different PSI counts for fog nozzles. Yeah, the designated operating pressure for most fog nozzles is 100 PSI, and then you can lower it down for less nozzle reaction, greater droplet size, or lower density fog patterns. And then nozzle maintenance. So after every fire, we typically do a pretty good job of inspecting and cleaning our nozzles. Fog nozzles need to be a little bit more thoroughly inspected because the little bits of the little openings in the fog nozzle, how it works, are more prone to being clogged with debris. So that's when you want to set at the end of the fire. You want to set it to flush, and kind of dilute and just flush it all out. Inspecting nozzles, you want to make sure like the O-ring and gaskets aren't damaged. Look for internal damage to nozzle body, coupling, and tip. Look for internal damage, debris, whether something may have gotten forced through the hose and hit the inside. Check to make sure everything's working properly. Handle, adjustment, flow rates, all the little knobs and twists and handles on the hose line. And then ensure all the parts are in good working order and good conditions. Make sure there's no damage, scratches, anything that can affect the operation of the hose line. Nozzle care, clean thoroughly, follow manufacturer's recommendations. Store the nozzle with the control bay in a closed position. Try to avoid dropping and dragging the nozzles on the ground. And as I mentioned just a little bit ago, use the flush setting on fog nozzles to remove internal debris. And then store, dry place. You don't want to try to get mold or anything growing in there. Review questions. What are some differences between smooth bore nozzles and